Why are unions now stepping up the heat when it comes to hazard pay under a second stimulus package? Hey everybody, this is LALATE with a second stimulus check and stimulus package update for today. This one's about hazard pay, that $10,000 from the federal government, which is proposed in the HEROES Act, which is currently in the Senate. Big breaking news overnight about hazard pay in a way that I never saw coming. Unions across this country are now demanding employers, as the pandemic increases and lockdowns are issued again, to start paying hazard pay. So if you are working as an essential worker currently in an environment in which you think you qualify for hazard pay, I want you to pay attention right now. What's going on? If you know, over the last couple of days, I've detailed the differences of hazard pay on a federal level, state level, local level. But this is a business by business level. Let me recap. Hazard pay, when we generally talk about it on this channel, is the federal proposal for hazard pay. The federal proposal, which I'll get to shortly, is in the HEROES Act, up to $10,000 landing in your bank account if the act is passed, if you work or are working as an essential worker. Then there's state or local hazard pay. A lot of states have issued orders, executive orders from their governors to pay essential workers hazard pay. As Mitch McConnell comes in another helicopter today, take me away. Those orders are providing essential workers in states a hazard pay, not $10,000, but a couple $100 if they're working in a at-risk environment during the pandemic. Well, this video today takes it at a whole nother exciting great news level. The great news is that unions are doing what unions are best at, ensuring that you get paid, essential workers, hazard pay, if you are working in that type of environment right now. What's going on? If you don't know, and I'm going to use groceries as an example. If you don't know, grocery stores generally are unionized. They have a very clearly defined union that protects their rights for employment, hourly compensation, things like that. But one of the things they've been excellent on is getting them paid hazard pay. They are now stepping in those unions and reaching out to the major grocery store chains across the country and informing them that they better start paying hazard pay as at-risk situations increase once again. What are we talking about? We're talking about the escalation of COVID-19 cases and the increased lockdowns across the country. Whether we're talking about the national number, oh boy, yesterday, 66,000 new COVID-19 cases in the nation, just exploding. California, worst day ever, 16,000 new cases, compared to 5,000 cases when the lockdown was issued in the state back in March. So COVID-19 cases are getting out of control. Lockdowns are being reissued in certain cities, counties, states across the country. But what are unions doing? They're saying, hey, you better start paying hazard pay to our workers right now. In the case of the grocery store unions, they are reaching out to the grocery store chains that employ their unionized workers and say, you know, you might have paid hazard pay before, maybe in March, but haven't been paid in July and haven't been paid in June because we all thought everything was so wonderful. Well, it's not wonderful now. You need to start paying hazard pay. And they're making big demands. The purpose of this video is to inform you that if you are in a union, immediately reach out to your union operative to inform them that, hey, I'm working in a essential workers environment. I'm working at an at-risk environment. What are you doing to ensure that I get hazard pay? Those unions are doing incredibly great stuff for their workers to ensure that they get paid hazard pay. Next, in the case of Amazon, which has really been going everywhere left and right about hazard pay in the last couple of days, they're under the fire again. One day they sound great, another day they sound under fire. The issue at before us now is an Amazon warehouse employee in Minnesota who's claiming that the company retaliated against him, her, in regards to what's called break time. And this is very important. I want to talk about break time if you're an essential workers. There is normally a time by state law that you're supposed to be provided breaks if you're an employee. Those break times are changed by operation of state law emergency orders during the pandemic. A lot of states have issued orders that employers cannot demand you not to take break time or shorten the break time or disqualify you if you want to take longer break time, especially if you are an at-risk essential worker. What's going on? So she is referring to Attorney General Keith Ellison, who's a Minnesota Attorney General, who had written up an issue about what do you do when you take off from time. She is suing Amazon, claiming that there was an executive order and asking Ellison for a protective order under executive order he signed in May and extended this week, which orders employers not to discriminate or retaliate against employees who raise concerns about unsafe working conditions tied to the pandemic, namely the issue of taking off time. She says, quote, I worked at Amazon for 4 years with a very clean record and just 1 or 2 warnings. Amazon managers have targeted me and harassed me. An Amazon work spokesperson disputed the claims. Quote, we have not seen the formal complaint. The allegations are not true. We do not tolerate any discrimination in the workplace, and we support every employee's right to criticize their employer. But what did Amazon do about this issue of hours at work, which is so important? I want you to pay attention to this because this applies to a lot of different businesses. This is a quote from Amazon spokesperson. In response to COVID-19, beginning on March 18th, 2020, Amazon ceased providing productivity rate feedback to associates and imposing any discipline related to low productivity rates, says Alexis Stevens, Director of Human Resources for Amazon Fulfillment Centers. On April 29th, this policy was extended indefinitely. So that's very important for you to understand. So if you are working as an essential worker and are being judged on productivity and being judged on levels of productivity and are also being judged on the number of hours or how much you get done in a specifically hour or how many breaks you take, you need to pay attention because there, in some cases, new executive orders have been passed by governors that says you can't do this as an employer anymore to essential workers in a hazard pay environment. Wow, I mean, a lot of stuff going on here. What we're going to see next week is really the battleground of hazard pay. If you're new to this channel, thanks for tuning in. I mean, we're getting about 10,000 new subscribers every 48 hours. Let's get it to 100,000 subscribers by in the next 10 days. That would be great. But one thing I've been focusing on is really next week, Monday or Tuesday, Steve Mnuchin and Mitch McConnell will debut their second stimulus package. They're writing it for the Republicans. We have not heard for all these days what the Republicans' position is on hazard pay. They're literally not talking about it. And we will see whether or not hazard pay is in their proposal. Now, first, if it's not, I don't want you to worry. 2, if it is and it's different, I don't want you to worry. What's going to happen is that the hazard pay, the Mnuchin-McConnell bill will be debated and merged with the HEROES Act, which is currently in the Senate. It's not like one bill replaces the other or one gets tossed and only one is discussed. No, they both have to pass both houses of Congress, the Senate and the House. So they're both put together. If Mitch and Stevie leave out hazard pay, and we certainly know the Democrats have it in there, don't worry. We don't know where this is going to land. My only concern is I haven't heard any position from the Republicans about hazard pay. It's just total silence. How does hazard pay work? How does it calculate? Are you an essential worker? Let's get right to the analysis. Hazard pay is a great thing. It pays essential workers who worked during the pandemic from January to the present or are still working during the pandemic. Who are essential workers? Essential workers are defined in the bill. It's pretty clear generally, but there's some gray areas. The clear ones are medical people, grocery workers, shipping and receiving, drivers, Uber, Lyft, truck drivers, warehouse, distribution, all essential workers. The ones that are not clearly defined. Anyone who works in Costco, Walmart, CVS, Target, Walgreens, all those are not clearly defined. Why? Because pharmacies are covered, grocery stores are covered, and none of those businesses I just mentioned to you are categorized as grocery stores. Target is not a grocery store, but it has groceries in it and has a pharmacy in it. So it's, or CVS has a pharmacy in it. So it's all a hot mess. The bill says that the purpose of the bill is to make it more comprehensive, not less comprehensive. How do you calculate hazard pay? I've told you before to please get those timesheets ready and do it for yourself. The way you do it is very simple. You look at the number of hours you have worked from January to the present, including overtime and regular hours, get those number of hours total, times it times $13 an hour. That gives you a total sum. You include everything. You include overtime, normal hours, whether you're furloughed or laid off or fired, whether you have multiple essential worker jobs, whether you have, whether you got hired and then refired and hired again. Everything is included. All right. So you times that times $13 an hour, you get a number. What is that number? Okay. The way the bill is written is very simple. If you made over $100,000 last year, you only get $5,000 at most. If you made less than $100,000 last year, you get $10,000 at most. If you've already reached that threshold of $5,000 or $10,000 by the time of the calculation that you're doing today, great. You would get a lump sum right in your account. If you haven't, no worry. Then you would get a lump sum of whatever that amount is, and then going forward, you would qualify for $13 an hour for every additional amount of work you do as an essential worker in the pandemic going forward. Pretty easy. And then there's the bad part. There's always a bad part. The bad part is that the employer has to apply for you. Yeah, I mean, who came up with that screwiness? The employer, I actually used the wrong verb. It is not has to, shall or can. There's a double whammy. First, you can't apply. 2, the employer applies for you. And 3, the employer does not have to apply for you. It's just about as screwy can be. And no one likes it. I don't like it. You don't like it. And even Mitt Romney doesn't like it. We've detailed the Mitt Romney plan, which is a Republican version of the hazard pay bill, but has nothing to do with Stevie Mnuchin and Mitch McConnell. So where is Mitt Romney's bill going to go? I don't know. I mean, all these bills are supposed to be discussed and merged together. Mitt Romney says, hey, I'm going to require the employer to apply. I'm going to require the employer to apply for hazard pay for you. 2, I'm going to pay the employer to do it, to do the calculation and do it for you, which I absolutely love. I'm telling you right now, it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of bookkeeping for the employer to figure out how much hazard pay you need to do, to submit the forms to the federal government, to get reimbursed from the federal government, to route it to you. It's a bookkeeping nightmare. And I don't think any employer is going to do it for free. Mitt Romney, who of course has an economic background, a financial background, says, no, they're not going to do it for free. I'm going to have the federal government pay them to do it to ensure you get paid. I mean, I think it's a great thing that Mitt Romney's doing. The only thing that's bad about Mitt Romney's plan is he reduces from $13 an hour to $12 an hour, I think. I think it was like a $1 an hour reduction. Ultimately, it's better to ensure you get the money than have the Democrat version of the bill, which is like, we're not going to require employers to do it. They can just do it if they feel in the mood to do it, which is just screwy. But as we come into next week, we're going to see what's happening with hazard pay. Bottom line, here's what you need to know for today. 1, a lot of states, cities, counties have new hazard pay funds that are paying right today. We've been detailing them all last week. So if you are working as an essential worker and you don't want to wait for the hazard pay bill, which is a supplement to what I'm describing right now, look at your city, county, or state, whether they're paying hazard pay right now. You might be eligible. You may be entitled to that money. Go get it. Second, reach out to your union. If you're not unionized, still reach out to any union that's sort of aligned with the type of business you do. An example is you work in a grocery store, but your grocery store is not unionized. Reach out to your union or the union aligned with your business, because ultimately they might be negotiating for hazard pay for you. You don't know. You might be eligible for hazard pay. 3, start the conversation with your fellow employers, your fellow employees about hazard pay. So if you are in a small 500 employee or less business, and it's clearly essential workers, start talking with them. Hey, I watched this guy LALATE on a channel. We qualify for hazard pay. I don't know if the bill's going to pass, but if it passes, we're entitled to a lot of money. We got to ensure that our employer's paying us this money, and I'm here to represent everyone's interests, but boy, if the employer has 500 employees, they're all essential, and all those 500 employees say to the employer, hey, hazard pay just passed in members of Congress last week. Are you going to pay it? No. I think 500 employees versus one employer who refuses to pay hazard pay is a powerful movement. So stay focused and focus on what you need to ensure that if the bills pass, that ultimately your employer applies for it. A lot of great stuff today. Stay focused, stay motivated, stay positive, stay respectful to your friends and family. And as always, stay smiling and stay with LA for more.